What's going on, everybody? Yeah, so first and foremost, I appreciate y'all patience. Technology be technologying is it drove me crazy. I was throwing stuff around the room because I was like, what's going on? You connected but not connected. But it don't matter because we here. We here. We live, baby. And I'm excited to introduce y'all to our very first Hidden Secrets Live. So this is your host right here, Justin Shaw, Eco Arc Shaw, and I'm beyond excited to have you with us this evening for our very, very first Hidden Secrets Live, y'all. It's a turn up, it's a good time, it's after hours. And Hidden Secrets was created to help entrepreneurs learn from marketplace leaders that have built companies from scratch and turned into titans in their own right. But we're not here just to highlight their highs. We're here to highlight their lows because in hopes that we want to make sure that you acquire the wisdom from their mistakes because we can always talk about all the good stuff. We could talk about the $30,000 days, the $50,000 days, some $100,000 days. But let's talk about when them accounts wasn't you had to go into that overdraft to cover some expenses, right? And so I'm not saying that's what we're here to talk about, but we're here to talk about making sure that we can teach you about all the amazing different things, the highs and the lows about entrepreneurship. And there's nobody else I'd rather have on earth to start off this experience than Mr. Calvin Royster. I'm gonna let him go into his spill because this man is a legend in his own right. But when I tell you this man walks on water, glows in the dark, everything he touches turns into gold, it's a true statement. This man has built an empire from scratch, serving the community, put it on his back. And when I tell you he's a thoroughbred titan in his own right. And what I mean by that is he's in one of the most dynamic and toughest industries in America. And to be honest, as a black man, to serve only minorities in his business and to generate six figures and protect millions in assets, that's commendable, especially with no background in this space. So I want you to give us a solid 60 seconds, no humility. I just want straight dog talk about how amazing you are. And yeah, so hold on. Let me get you a round of applause to hype you up. Give me 1 second. And after the applause is done, go ahead and run into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Calvin Royster.
Jeez, I mean, you said so many good things about me. I'm over taking notes like, who about to speak? Um, so, but no, I appreciate all the kind words, man, and I'm glad to be on here and to kick this program off, man, because I can see a lot of value coming from this, especially with the people who are taking the time out their day to plug into this type of community and investing in themselves. So, but yeah, so as far as myself, Calvin Royster. I'm the founder and CEO of A New Financial. Been in the industry now for 11 years, the insurance industry, 11 years. And in my time, I have written in the ballpark about $10 million in annual premium in insurance. I've mentored other, dozens of insurance agents and helped many come on to become independent business owners within the insurance world. I've also been fortunate enough to be able to release one of my newest publications, which is called Black Millennials: The Classified Guide, a Survival Guide to Insurance. And I think this would be a great resource for your audience because What it does is really breaks down in a very digestible way how to understand insurance, how to leverage insurance, and probably the most appealing of the bunch, how to save a lot of money in the process. So I definitely encourage you all to check that out as well. I'm also a board member of NIA, which is the largest Black organization for insurance professionals in the country. And so they have a local chapter here in Central Virginia or Richmond, Virginia, and I'm a board member of that. So I'm proud to be able to represent them and the mission that they are trying to get out there, because one of the things I realized very early on in my career was there's not too many of us doing this, especially at a high level. So those of us who are finance pros, insurance pros, definitely encourage you to tap into NIA as a resource as well. And I'll round it off with this, because we're talking about entrepreneurship tonight as well. I'm known very well for what I've done in the insurance space, but I've also had a 5-year hiatus from insurance at one point in time in my career, and where I dabbled in the home improvement space. And so, in that, to fast forward a bit, I've recently co-founded and am president of Phoenix Kitchens, which is a kitchen remodeling company, in which we do everything from the ceilings to the floors. So right now we've just launched this month, so I'm super excited about this project, and we are also running a promotion. So I encourage anybody who's in the market to go to our website as well, check out the promotion offer, and have a good time.
Man, whew, that was like a book, man. But I mean, I told you talk your stuff. So listen, man, I'm so happy to have you here because, like I said, this is the first hidden secrets, and like I said, there's nobody else I would do this with because I know what you've been through, up, down, good, bad, ugly. I've seen you on the mountaintop, I've seen you in the valleys, and I know that so many people get the value out of out of what you have experienced. So let's start off with this origin story. How did you get here?
Okay. So as far as how I got into the insurance space was pretty interesting. So I had made some choice decisions as a teenager, and really didn't set myself up for the best adulthood. But I ended up going to one of my first real jobs was at Applebee's. I was serving 2 for 20s, and ironically, I could not get my driver's license because it was already suspended. Right. So couldn't get my driver's license. I was almost 20 years old, and I finally got my license. And so for that reason, I was a little delayed in getting my car. Finally got my first car, and within 2 weeks, it was totaled. The When they totaled the car, the other company that came out, because it was their fault, they came out to my house and they gave me the assessment for the car and then said, "Here's a check for the car damage." And their car was wrapped in an insurance company's logo. So I said, you know what? This is 19-year-old me thinking, I can do that. I can go to people's houses and give them checks for cars, and I'll get a company car at the deal. So I said, let me go see what it takes to be an insurance agent, because I can get, again, a car and a career out this deal, and I don't have to serve at Applebee's anymore. So that was my thinking. I ended up applying at a local agency, at the time I was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and they took me on board. They went through the whole licensing process with me, and then yeah, so that's how I got started in the industry. And then, over that tenure, I've worked with a few Fortune 500 companies, and I've done some things and different projects and have led in certain components and capacities. But the last 6 years, I have been an independent broker, which is basically I get to open up my own shop, provide different type of solutions, and have a whole bunch of different options to provide people. So I've been doing that for the last 6 years, and have been on a very much a roller coaster ride in the first few years, and then it's definitely evened out over time.
Yeah, man. What I love about this story, there's always a common denominator that I see in so many entrepreneurs is that we usually find our purpose through our problems, right? Now,
Mm.
granted, I never want you to get into a car accident, but the fact that a car accident happened and it led to the thought of an opportunity for you, it's just crazy how a miracle can be wrapped up in what we see as in hindsight an issue or a problem. And the fact that you were able to turn a bad situation to something good, that imagine if you never got into that accident.
I mean, the appetite. This 2 for 25
Them,
now.
them two for thought. still dishing out them 2 for 20s, man. Well, you said
Right.
2 for 25s. But it's commendable because the thing is that it the hardest part about entrepreneurship is just starting.
Yeah.
It's just getting your foot through the door to say, you know what, I'm gonna go out there and try this thing. And not only that, second step is about being able to persevere because most businesses fail within the first 2 years, and the
Mhm.
majority of them fail in 5 years. And you're
Whew.
past five.
Yes.
So talk to us about your experience as an entrepreneur, just through the wingspan of when inception to now.
Man, that stat about most businesses failing in the first years, I felt every bit of that. To be completely transparent, my first deal. So I opened my agency. So when I first started my agency, so start from the very beginning. So I opened the agency. It was 2018. I was actually working full time out of state. So I had a one-way commute of about 2.5 hours to work, assuming that's just moderate traffic. So I was doing that in hopes of climbing promotions and making all this money within one particular company. And so I was willing to make that sacrifice. And I said, this isn't quite working for me. I've always wanted to go off and do my own thing. What should that be? And then that's where insurance kind of resurfaced for me. So became a broker again in 2018. And for the first 9 months, I did absolutely nothing with it. In part because I was very much an analysis paralysis situation where I didn't really know what to do. I never done it. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody to guide me. I just kind of knew. I researched and figured out how to do it, but I didn't know what to do after that. And so from there, for the first 9 months, I did nothing. It was just, part time, spare time. I did not get a single client. I made zero revenue for 9 months. And then the very first deal I got, I made $500. I was excited, but it was off of me. I sold it. I sold it to myself. So that don't even count, right? Um, so, so needless to say, the first year I made no money. The second year, I started doing something a little bit more with it, and still doing it, part time. And I had a few deals, and I started realizing that I wanted to market to the millennial market specifically. So I the reason for my confusion and the reason why I didn't move that much is because I didn't know who I really wanted to talk to. Like I knew how to talk to seniors because that's kind of what my background was, but I really wanted to help millennials because there was in my time with seniors, I realized that there is very much a need there, but there was a lot of reactive planning, and I wanted to be proactive about the planning. Right. So what I did was I decided to pivot and work with the millennial market. And that's really where I started getting traction. So the second year is when I made that pivot to go more so the millennials. I started getting some traction. I networked really heavy. It took about 9 months of aggressively networking. When I say aggressively, I mean I'm at everybody's coffee, lunch and learn, meet and greet that in the morning and the night at everything all week. Did that for 9 months and saw no results again. So I'm like, come on, man, going into almost the third year of this thing, and I'm still not seeing anything. So, but that's when the floodgates opened. Right after that, so I did 9 months, and saw nothing, and at the top of 2020, right when COVID hit, uh, all of the networking I've been doing started paying off because now people started calling me. Now deals are just coming in. They're coming in, and I actually added fuel to the fire in that because I also expanded the agency. So when I started, it was just life insurance. In 2020 hit, COVID, the pandemic hit. I panicked. I didn't know. Look, I was already struggling. I wasn't really making any money. I just started getting traction. I said, I can't turn away a conversation. So I went and got my PNC license, which allowed me to sell auto, home, business, and have a lot more conversations around insurance. So I went and did that in 2020, which added fuel to the fire to all the referrals that were coming in because now I can have a lot more conversations and talk to more people about different things. And that was the best decision ever for the company. And after that, it really just has taken off. And so now I'd say about 90% of my business to this date has been referral based. And the rest of it, I supplement through social media. So I really don't have to buy leads. I can, but that's not really my thing.
You said so much. I got so many different things from that, and when I tell you, the first thing was, people were saying it in the chat. It's about the persistence, right? Because you said for the first 9 months, you could have had a whole child before you sold yourself on your first policy, which was you. And I
Yeah,
think go. I think the
that's
power
literally
in
what
the
happened. My son was born. That he was very young when it happened. So basically, it was right in line, right in line. So,
and
yeah,
the
fun
thing that I
times.
love about that is that oh yeah, these little kids ratchet. But so, but I love this because I think this is my own personal opinion, which I think everybody could agree. The only way you're able to sell something is if you've truly experienced it yourself.
Yeah,
And you took yourself through that process first in order to be able to kind of build up that confidence to keep going. One, to know that you are confident in the process that you put people through, but two, that it works,
yeah.
right? And so I'm curious to what was going through your mind in those startup years when you weren't getting that first client. And if you could go back and restart this thing from scratch, what would you do differently?
That's a really good question. Um, so the first thoughts I had when I was going through that, uh, really I knew I was passionate about it, but I just didn't take it that serious, to be honest with you. So it's like something I wanted to do. It's something I eventually would get around to. But because I didn't take it serious, my business wasn't serious. And that's one of the things that, I definitely would apply differently is knowing what I know today, I would have taken that inception and have been much more serious about it because I know what is on the other side of it. I just didn't know what I didn't know. Um, there was definitely some self doubt there because I didn't want it to be another thing that didn't work. I really wanted to do something and it come to fruition the way that I wanted to. It was going through that, and those were some very real emotions I had to deal with, and then of course I had a very challenging relationship I was in at the time that added a lot of pressure to that. So that was kind of like how my mind was at first. Going back, one of the things I would do is I definitely would have um, been more intentional about who I'm marketing to and commit to that and figure out how to do that, how to market to them, get in front of them, and generate revenue in doing that. And I would have went 2 times as hard at the networking piece of it, knowing that that's ultimately my goal. Because my goal was not to I have worked a lot of leads over my career. Um, my goal was not to buy a whole bunch of leads and sell to a whole bunch of strangers. My desire was to be very strategic and intentional about working with the Black community specifically. And so, in order to do that, I wanted to make sure that I was aligned with people that would refer people, my consumer to me, right? So, doing all of that and setting myself up for success, I would have done a lot differently in the beginning.
So I want to make sure that people heard that. So drop in the chat the word belief. In the chat the word belief because that's the common denominator about what you said. Me and you actually joke about this all the time about when we go to events and then people just say, you just got to believe. And it just is like, what do you mean by that? But over time, we started to realize the power in belief because 9 times out of 10, you're the reason that you're holding yourself back. Whether you believe in something that
Yeah.
you can do it, you're correct. If you believe that you can't do it, you're correct because a lot of times your actions flow where your emotions flow. And if you
Mm.
emotionally are connected to your success or connected to your failure, whichever one your attention is flowing to is what's going to end up coming to fruition. And so this is really good. I'm loving this. So Calvin, I believe that a lot of times with people that are in entrepreneurship, they experience a lot of trouble throughout the process
Mm.
because they have not identified their gift in their business, their
Mm.
superpower. What is this is actually like a three-part question.
Okay.
One is what is your superpower? 2, when did you discover your superpower? And 3, how do you leverage your superpower in your business?
Okay. So my superpower is building relationships and presenting product for sure. And the reason why I think it's twofold is because the the building a relationship part is a necessity in my opinion. You know, you've got to build the relationships, whether it be with strategic partners, whether it be manufacturers, whether it be with um, carrier relationships or whatever may be relevant to your industry. That's going to be imperative to whatever the growth in whatever industry you're in. But you can't just have the relationships. You have to be able to communicate what the solution is that you desire to be, right? So that's definitely my superpower. I'm really good at both of those things. As far as what was the second part of that? It was
The actual so the first
when did I
question
realize it?
no, this yeah, when did you realize it?
All right, so I realized that when um, I started really getting traction with the different strategic partners. So to be more specific, when I was networking, I wasn't necessarily networking for clients. So this is something I would definitely encourage people that are heavy into networking or wanting to figure out how do I start networking? What's the best way to do it? Go network with intentionality and a mission. So I wasn't focused on just talking to people for the sake of talking to people. I wasn't even necessarily looking for clientele specifically. My goal and strategy when I was out there networking day in and day out was to talk to other business professionals that were in front of my ideal audience. So every conversation I walked away with was very beneficial. Every conversation with the right person was very beneficial, where I was able to add value to their community and possibly introduce them to mine. So it was a give and take there. So that was when I realized I said, okay, this was a theory, but now I'm getting a lot of traction with it, and the world is, it is my oyster at this point because now how many strategic partners can I get? What it became a game almost. Like, what do I want to market today? Where do I want to grow my business today? And who should I talk to get me in front of that audience? So that's when I started realizing it. And as far as like the presenting product piece, that was something that I had brought with me from, my entire professional career has been in sales. So I'm very confident in being able to present it once I got in front of the right people. And the last part of it was
How do you leverage it to
how
grow
do you
your
leverage
business
it?
now?
Yes. Okay. So I pretty much touched on that, but how I leverage it today is again just knowing that I can go in any room and feel really good about having a couple very valuable conversations because I know exactly who I'm going to go talk to. Even so, case in point, one of my partners that I'm looking for currently. I do a lot of business with certain insurance carriers. I won't, drop them their name in here because they're not paying me to do so. But there's particular insurance carriers that they have a standalone product. They're very well known. They spend millions, if not billions, of dollars in marketing, advertising, and I've aligned myself with their local agents to solve problems that they don't have the capacity to do because they have a very focused client or very focused niche that they work with. So I align myself with them to write everything outside of what they can't normally write. And so in that, when I'm networking, I'm looking for particular agency owners. And so what I'll do is I'll look for events where an agency owner may be speaking at. So case in point, I have on the 19th, there's an event that I'm going to where an agency owner in an agency near me, I haven't met him yet, but I'm going to go meet him. And I know where he's at because he's on the panel, right? So just knowing, again, who you want to go talk to, be strategic and intentional about that. And then that's how I've lined it up for myself.
So there's two levels to this about what you just broke down, right? Because you one you have a tool, which is your ability to network. That's your superpower, and so your superpower is also your strategy, right? So which
Mm-hmm.
is networking in general. But then you're creating a tactic out of it by going to specific events, asking for specific people to make specific connections, right? And the tactic could be you going to different brokers that you want to partner with to be able to get in new leads. Or it could be partnering with auto dealers that end up bringing you different leads. And so these are different tactics that you're utilizing. Reason I'm explaining this is because a lot of times we get so one dimensional in our superpower that we forget that we can put it in different mediums and get better results. And
Yes.
so I love how you were able to leverage that. And the other key to this is that if I remember correctly, you found it in 2018. You said it didn't really start taking off till 2020.
Yes.
And so just to know that it took you 2 years to really hone in and start to master that gift, and it took that repetition to be able to do it. Because when we first start off in business, a lot of people wanna make their first sale in their first 24 hours, their first hour, their first month, and that's everybody's desire, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's possible. There are people that make 7 figures in an hour that I've seen.
Mm.
But you gotta start somewhere, right? Especially when we have no experience in the field that we've been in. And so I love how you took your experiences and your processes to be able to evaluate what your gifting is. And now you're leveraging that to put you on stages that are bringing in, I mean, I know you ain't talking about it, but new recruits. It's been able to get leverage for you to bring in new employees. It's been able to get leverage to bring in new partners that will generate leads for you. And it's just, it's a it's a brute. It's a brute.
Yeah, Glow.
Yes, sir. Let me not cut up. I'm in a professional setting right now. So no, man, this is really good. What I wanted to ask you is what was that moment that changed everything for you in your business? What was that low point where it was like, and I'm gonna quote somebody, and you're gonna laugh at it. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. I'm gonna go out there and get what I deserve.
It was about to get real. It I knew there was no going back when I was willing to walk away from uh, my family to do it. And it sounds crazy to say out loud, but the headspace I was in was I was so committed because you got to understand for me, insurance. I'm gonna build several businesses and build them big and then sell them off like that. That's just a part of my fabric. But insurance to me is a like it's a calling. Like there's a very specific mission that was placed on me that I am unshakable in. Like this is when I say I'm taking insurance with me to the grave. Like yeah, I say it jokingly. It's funny because I have a lot of insurance connections and people just like it's just another business you can sell. It's just something else they do. No, it's not that for me. It's different with this. And I knew that the moment where I was I was married at the time, and you know that the relationship did not end up working out. But in that time, I thought that it was going to have to work out. But I said, got to a point, and this is early on, mind you. I had nothing to back this up outside of confidence and and conviction that this was it for me, with no foresight. Just this was just hopes that this was going to work out. But at that, I had to have that very real conversation with myself. I said, the your spouse is not going to be able to handle this journey that you're going to be on. Are you willing to walk away from that in order to pursue what you know is for you? And when I said I was, then that's why I knew there's no going back. I can't go back now, right? Like I'm too far in. And so, anytime things got challenging, anytime things got, no matter how much doubt I faced, whatever it may be, I knew there was no turning back. I said, you were willing to make that sacrifice. You need to stick this out because it was a constant reminder why. So that was the backstory to that.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think just to kind of let people know, there is context behind that. It
Yes,
was,
there's a
you
lot.
know,
There's more to that. Yeah, a lot more to that.
yeah, we're gonna let them know you're not suggesting people to walk away from their
Don't
family.
not Dr. Phil. Um,
It's a lot more context to that,
yeah,
but
bring
I
it back in,
understand.
Justin. Bring it back in for me.
I understand, and I know why
Yeah.
you said certain things. And so when it got to that point, you would have thought I had something deep to say, but I lost my train of thought.
I was like, he about to cry. I couldn't tell. I know what's going on.
I couldn't get it back. Could not get it back. I'm sorry, y'all. I dropped the ball on that one. That's the first one. Please forgive me. Charge it to the game. Um, so what's one thing you wish you can express to someone in the beginning stages of their business? As far as they just started off, they have they have the passion for what they're doing.
Hmm.
Um, but they just feel like something's missing that's not getting them over that curve.
There's a lot to that. Um, if I had to maybe prioritize it, I would say if you're passionate, you're just starting out, and you need some guidance on what to do. I would say, it's I think it's one of the things that's not really talked about. I can't believe I just said that out loud. Um, I think it's so I think that the business plan idea of writing one. Like everybody says, yeah, you're supposed to do it. I don't know how people actually do it. I would encourage you to do that because I think for me in my journey, that was one thing that was very eye opening. I had I hadn't written my business plan for a new financial until I was maybe 3 years in. And that was because it was a prerequisite for I think some funding I was trying to get through the SBA. And so I had to do it. But in that experience, I learned so much because it forced me to really. It asked me some questions. So free resource SBA should still have where you can go on there and do use their template for developing your business
Hmm.
plan. So through that, they asked you questions that are really pointed and specific and will really have you analyze and kind of think through, okay, maybe some things you didn't think through. And I encourage you to take that time to really figure out what your niche is, what you want to do, where you want to be, and ask yourself those tough questions. I think oftentimes we just kind of get excited, we're passionate, we're fired up, and then we open and hope for the best. But I encourage you to slow down and speed up in that sense. Um, and then again, just be intentional about your audience. I found that was the thing that really helped me move faster because of course you can sell to any and everybody, but when you're selling to any and everybody, your message has to shift so much. You have to create so many messages. You don't even know, um, it makes it more challenging to create the message. Um, so I would say definitely spend some time figuring out who your audience is because even though you might in one sense be peeling back by or limiting by talking to a subsect or a sect of people, it does actually make things easier for you because hey, if I'm talking to, if you're selling T-shirts, but you want to, instead of just selling T-shirts to everybody, maybe you have messaging specific to business owners or daycare providers or youth camps or whatever it is, and you just focus on that, and it makes it so much easier because now you can spend your entire day instead of talking about 20 different industries. You can talk about, okay, what's the best messaging I can develop for youth camps or daycare providers or churches or whatever it may be, and you can run a whole product line just based off of that. So I think that's something that you could do.
Yeah, no, this is super, super good because I'm a systems junkie. Anybody that comes through here and is like, I want to start a business, I'm like, we writing it out, we're creating the process maps, all that stuff. And I'm gonna take you guys back probably about what 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I did a talk on the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business International Summit in DC, and I had to do a talk on passion to process,
Mm,
and it stemmed from when before I did the cohort for that organization, I was just willing my way to success. I was just trying to push through. I just said my charisma, my connectivity to people is what's going to drive sales. And it did. But I also realized that the thing that was holding me back from it was the fact that that was all I was living off of, was just my passion, my thrill, all these other different things. And I remember somebody saying that passion isn't a strategy,
Yeah.
and passion can't take you to six figures. It can get you there potentially, but to sustain it, to grow over time through that, you have to have systems in place. And that's why it's important to have a business plan. And I actually wrote out my business plan in 2020 as well, through the SBA website. And I think it goes to the point of we get excited because it gives us direction, but I get excited because it gives entrepreneurs boundaries. Meaning
Mm,
they people get super excited about the yeses that they're gonna get, but I get excited about the nos that you could deliver. Because what happens is when we start to actually get that momentum, everything is coming into our face. It's like, hey, listen, I got this booth, I got this sponsorship, I got all these different things that are coming at me, and it's hard to tackle which one I want to do, right? Or I got this new segment or audience, which goes into what you were saying about marketing. Because one of my mentors says, if you marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody, because
mm.
nobody can resonate with your message. And so when you're able to deny yourself of certain segments, it'll help you thrive in the right lane that you're going into. And so you're only able to be able to identify that is if you pause, you sit there and think about who you're connecting to and what your mission is and see if it's best serving if you are serving your audience the best way possible. And so you out here dropping gems, man. I'm over here taking notes myself. Hold on one second. So
It-
I'm a
It's funny.
I'm a slowly
I actually had a client that literally very passionate, no system at all, and fumbled her way into six figure business. So I'm excited to hopefully she she gets connected with some additional resources to really accelerate that growth. But yeah, people out here are definitely stumbling over the six figures in revenue and not knowing what they're doing, which is interesting. But like you said, the sustainability is an important part. I think people can come up on a nice bit of revenue and mishap, but can you continue that? Because businesses, and I think it's another shift that I would love to see early stage entrepreneurs think about is more long term. And I think again we get in, we half step it to just to get something, to get something going. And if it doesn't work in like a year, it's like, okay, well, that's whatever. You didn't really give it your best effort in the first place. So start with that. And you were only thinking about, okay, if it doesn't really work in a year, I'm out, when you really need to be thinking about, okay, what's the 10-year plan on this? What's the exit strategy? What do I want to build this to sell? Do I want to keep this in the family? Do I want to scale it and then, bring in investors? Like what is the end goal of this thing, and start to reverse engineer it? But it really does help us think about the longer term. Speaking to insurance specifically, I see so many people come in and leave the industry for that very reason. No, people are here just for a quick buck, and then which is funny because insurance is probably one of the slowest ways to build wealth, both on the consumer and the agency owner side. But but yeah, man, I would love to see more of us just really start to think about businesses for the long term and be committed to whatever it is. And I'm not saying you have to run a business to the ground forever before you get out of it, but what I am saying is really analyze what you want out of it in the beginning and be willing to commit to see it for to fruition.
That's good. So I'm gonna take it biblical real quick.
Do it.
I need people to write in the chat, know the end from the beginning,
Mm.
right? So let's go to Genesis, okay? Look, I'm about to bring us to church real quick
All right, come
because
on, preach.
this is where I get a lot of my wisdom from it, right? And when we think about Genesis and how God constructed the earth, He is a creator, and He put that same power in the inside of us to be able to do the exact same thing. And biblically speaking, He gives us the blueprint on how to build these businesses, right? Because at the end of it, He created us to have dominion over the space. He had us in mind before He even started sculpting the earth, right? And so before he did that, he put the waters on the earth. He was able to put the land mass on there. He was able to put the animals and all these other different things on the earth for us And then he put us there to have dominion. And so the reason he was able to think about that was okay, we need oxygen, check. Okay, we need land, we need water, we need all these different things to get to our end result of creating man on earth with the spirit inside of it to produce a fruit that's going to yield a harvest for him. And so if we think about our business just how he thought about creating the earth, then we'll have that same blueprint to success. And
Mm.
so that's just biblically speaking, right?
Oh,
Because at the end of the day,
that's just something slight.
you know, at the end of the day, and that's why the Bible is like my favorite, like person.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna call it a personal development book. Don't strike me, Jesus. But where I get a lot of wisdom from sculpting business because there's nothing new under the sun. I'm
right.
gonna repeat that. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
You may have an innovative idea, but the blueprint is literally in that 66 books. You do not have to guess it at all because it's all in there. It's just got to be up to you to go in there and actually search it out. I think it says somewhere, I'm going to butcher it. It says, it takes kings to search out for their own treasure or something like that. It says something
Mhm.
like that in Proverbs, right? And so you got to have the pursuit to go out there and seek the answers. You can't just expect them to fall in your lap. And that goes to what you were talking about when you were discussing about how entrepreneurs kind of have wishful thinking. They love what they do. They're excited about what they do, but they may not necessarily have the drive to go out there and find these things, right?
Yeah.
And it's a king's job to go out there and find his treasure. So if you're not going out there seeking, you're not going to find. If you don't knock on the door, it's not going to open.
Mm.
So yeah, that was a lot of good stuff. So I'm gonna ask you this:
Yeah.
what do you feel like the cat? And this will be like my last question. What do you feel like was the catalyst to pushing your business over that six-figure mark?
Hmm. I would say really the right partnership. Um, you know, I had secured a partner that they had again. So going back to my point earlier about lining up with the right people, um, I had partnered with an insurance company, and they had produced. I want to say they were a top three producer for consecutive years. And so I got to know the owner pretty well through networking and speaking at conferences. We had crossed paths a couple times, and we had a mutual client who introduced us. And so we had, formed a partnership. And from there, we really locked arms, and I was their go-to guy. And so that really took the business to a whole nother level, because of the volume that they did. The amount of stuff they could not handle was a lot. So a lot of that was coming to me. And so that one partnership drove me to another realm, as far as business goes. And so that's what got me over. And then so now I know that did for me outside of just the revenue is it really established a plug and play system. So now it's just, okay, how many of these do I want? How many of these can we handle? And it's not just getting, and this is another thing that I would encourage, us to think through when we're thinking about it long term. You can go and get that RFP business. You can go after the government contracts. You can go after that big client, but just make sure on the back end you have the systems to sustain that. Because just as easy as it can be lost, right? So that was one of the things that definitely helped get me going.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think the biggest lesson here from your story is the power of connectivity, the power of partnership, the
Yeah.
power of networking. Because when we do things in silos by ourselves, it's really hard to be able to thrive in the spaces that we are. Because a lot of people usually seem to being an introvert in their business, and
Mhm.
you can create the leads and generate, business through being an introvert some type of way. But the biggest and most powerful people in the world leverage that network. And case in point, now, I think last week I was at an event and I started thinking about the main things that drive a lot of success for business. And one of them was and let me make sure I got this right. I wrote it in my notes. But the first one, what I realized was the opportunities that you get on the federal level, like what you were just saying. Because
Mhm.
what some people don't know is that the government has to allocate 20% of their federal funds to small minority owned businesses for their contract. So what Calvin was saying, it was something called a RFP, which is a request for proposal, which are for huge contracts with the government, where you can take your business and make a lot of money, like a lot of money from a single entity. What is the biggest business in America? Uncle Sam, the
Mhm.
U.S. government, right? And then the other thing was, I wish I could find it. It was in my notes. My
And
bad. I got. Go ahead.
to piggyback off of that, um, one of the things I know, again, just speaking from my personal experience, I didn't realize how big of an opportunity it was to work the government and how much of a, sometimes like of a straight line it can be. Keep in mind, you don't have to be the primary. So when you go for RFP, there's normally a primary and there can be a sub. So you don't have to necessarily be the main person on the contract, right? So if you know somebody, let's say you're in I don't know, like a green company and you're selling green products, or I should say there's a contract for a green product company, right? And that's out. But you might not have the capacity to handle everything within the contract. So anytime you go look at a government contract, they will spell out in detail what they need from you. And you as a business can say, hey, okay, I may not be able to handle 100%. That's too large for where I'm at. But if you are connecting with people, you can talk your way through somebody who might be able to handle 80% of it, and then they are going to dish out the 20 because again, they're obligated from, contractually to have so much allotted for a small business anyway. So you can actually help them. So when you to go for the contract, sometimes what'll happen, well, let me take a step back. So when you go for a contract, there's a scoring system, right? So what goes into that decision of getting the contract is the score that you get. One of the largest points you can get is being a small minority owned business. So in that, you actually bring value to the conversation to that large company because you can now help them look better because now that they're going to be leveraging you and you'll be leveraging them helping get that contract. So that's just an example of how partnership can work for you, even with without having to go get the full contract itself.
Yeah, that's good. So I found my notes. I found my notes. Thank you for buying me some time real quick. So
Yeah,
I was at an event the other day and I started to think and ponder on a few different things that have helped me out in business. And I realized that there's a way to be fruitful in every season in your business. And a few of them were, well, it was four main things. One, of course, your sales. Your sales drive your revenue. Your partnerships are the people that bring those people to you. You have your funding, which creates the capital, whether that's grants, whether that's pitching, whether that's through cohorts that give you funding and all these other different things. And then lastly, it's the government because the government has so many free resources. I mean, Calvin, you actually gave us a few. You gave us RFPs, you gave us the SBA.gov, which is the Small Business Association, and they give loans they give seven figure loans. But the key is you gotta write out the plan for them to be able to even think about giving you the money. So
right.
you got to be serious about what you're doing and what you're building. And so, yeah, no, this was amazing, man. Look, I think we about to come to a close. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is just give us a few last words of wisdom that you would share with everybody, or if you were talking to yourself again, uh, that just had a dream, that had a desire to do something different in your life, what would you tell that person?
I would say, I would say, think bigger and move faster. Um, Yeah, move faster. And not in the sense that you're rushing, but think about all of those times. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself and not anybody else on this call, but think about all those times you procrastinated. Think about all those times you put stuff off, you waited till tomorrow. Think about all those times the project was delayed when it didn't have to be. And and so when I say move faster, that's the sense I'm talking about. Not rushing, but just moving in a sense that you are moving with urgency. That's probably a better way to phrase that. So think bigger, move with more urgency, and watch how that thing unfolds.
Man, that's so good. Well, listen, I'm not even gonna get my extra 2 cents on top of that. I appreciate you taking time out your schedule to hop on here for our first Hidden Secrets live, man. Look, I need to give myself an applause and you an applause for being able to get through all this the crazy technical difficulties. So yeah, so again, guys, I appreciate you hopping on. Next week we're gonna have another one, Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. I'm gonna announce the guests in the next couple of days, but make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll make sure I drop a link in the comments really quick, and we're gonna have a phenomenal time. We appreciate you for hopping on. Um, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, man.
All right.